All right, perfect. So it looks like we're live. I'm just going to double check in the group, everybody. If you can see us, if you're here, just let us know. And I'm going to just double check to make sure that this is streaming into the group. Yeah, there we are. Awesome. Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Do you see us?
My phone just gave me an announcement that we're live.
Perfect. Okay, good stuff. So let me just go back over to the group so I can monitor the chat. I'll keep an eye on the chat.
Okay.
And awesome. So I'll just start. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this live. My name's Grace Edison, and I am here with Sarah Gallagher and Lauren Little. I'm saying your last name right, right? I realized I never said it out loud before.
Gallagher's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. And so today we're really going to be mostly just we wanted to come in and introduce ourselves. Sarah has graciously invited us into the group and brought us onto her team for more support. I would say more robust support, but I don't know if
Yep.
robust is the best word. What would you say?
I was thinking that I was gonna. I emailed my emails people this morning and let them know what's going on. And the way I described it is that you are going to be helping me with my outreach because I've been finding that we are a very big group. We are over 3,000 people. I would love to help everybody
Yeah.
individually, and I just don't have the bandwidth. And I posted this last week for them as well, just to kind of give them the update of what's going on. I am so pleased that you guys are part of the team now, because I know you are completely dedicated to supporting the people that we are in this group. And I wouldn't have worked with you otherwise. I wouldn't have brought you in otherwise. So yes, absolutely. You're going to hear me more as to help with my outreach, help with the connections, help get conversations going. And I work more on the actual providing of the content and the live groups and the my actual clients, right? So spreading love.
Yeah. Well, and I think that love requires support. And I think it's a big thing for you even to recognize that you, in order to support everyone in your group, you also needed and wanted and were open to receiving, which is like a big key word here, I think, right? Is open to
Yeah.
receiving support because that can be really challenging. I'll speak for myself, but as a woman who was born in the 80s, we sort of received this message that we could do it on our own. We didn't need that help and support. And I think that, in my own grieving process, in different instances and situations, I certainly felt like I had to figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
it's got to be this like private, behind the scenes. Don't make other people uncomfortable was the message that I received. I don't know
Absolutely.
about you two, but
Well, absolutely. And I think a lot of that is because no, that's just reading about this yesterday too, that there's this idea that widowhood is catching. That if you're going through so much
oh,
trauma and going through much pain, that people in general don't want to deal with it because they're afraid that's going to affect them and their life as well. So we get in this state where it's like, okay, well, I have to do this on my own. No one support me. No one's here to understand me.
yeah,
And if people ask me how I'm doing, they don't really. So I have to just kind of carry all this on my own. And being an only parent on top of that, where you're expected to do all the things,
yeah,
it gets a lot. And then even when you want to ask for help, you don't even know how. You don't even
yeah,
know what you're asking for because there's
yeah,
just so much out there. How do you pick and choose, right?
yeah. That's a huge thing. Like I find that I've been, and we can talk a bit about this, but we're kind of in you called it what did you call it? Pre-grieving or something like that? Like we're my
Anticipatory grief.
anticipatory grief. And I found that, I've been really sick and I have two 14-year-old kids and I personally have found that even in that and people will say, what do you need? What can I help you with? And I'm like, I I don't
Everything.
know. Yeah,
Like
I
pick
almost
something.
need
Pick
for someone
something.
to just say, "I'm gonna just go ahead and do this." But then there's a problem with that, isn't it? Like
There's
then
the
we're doing
accepting
things
of
for
that too.
people,
Yeah.
right? Well, and even, I can't, so I'm sick and I can't eat a lot. So everyone's like, the first thing everyone wants to do is bring food and bring food to my family. But I also there's this pressure, and we're going to talk about this as far as like the ways to really be with someone in grief, to companion grief, to use I can't remember his name now, but I'll find it. as we were reading and learning the other day. And so what do you find is, how have you learned to manage, and maybe you can both answer this, how have you learned to sort of accept support? What have you found is helpful, and do you have certain things that you know how to ask for when it comes to support?
Ooh, see, that's a big one. So it's this,
Yeah.
it's almost like the sense of vulnerability, the fact that it's okay to say that you can't be superwoman woman as much as you want to be, that really are people who depend on each other, that grief or any kind, even like as taking care of kids, I mean, it takes a village, right? And grief isn't something that's supposed to be doing alone. Grief isn't it's supposed to be there to help support other people because it's inevitable. Everybody's going to be touched by it, but nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
So getting to
No.
yourself to that vulnerable place to say, okay, this is what I need support with. I was saying, okay, well, what can I cannot do? And that's the thing too, like knowing where your boundaries are. If you are a very good housekeeper, then they're going to be fantastic at that. But if you're not good at cooking and if you mess up, that's okay, right? So then, okay, ask your kids, or ask for someone to help you make that meal. What are you good at? Find your strengths, find out what you are good at. And anything that you are not good at, it's okay to ask for help, to be vulnerable, because you also have to show your kids too that this is something that they can also rely on other people, because the last thing you want them to do to showcase to them is that they have to do it on their own, all on their own, that they have to keep it inside, that they have to keep their boundaries up and their barriers up. That's not safe and secure for them. That's not safe and secure for you.
Yeah.
And they're just going to parrot you. So knowing that, I think that's a lot of the part that I had to deal with too, is that by showing my own vulnerability and showing my own boundaries, it also helped my kids because it helped
Yes.
them grow into themselves. And that's personally what helped me, because as any caregiver out there and I'm a caregiver archetype, that's who I am. I will give and give
Right.
and give and give until
Yes.
I
Yes.
can't anymore. And I've
Yes.
talked about this too. I will take off both my arms and I will give them to you. I will
Yes.
overextend myself, but that's not helping anybody. And that's certainly not helping my kids who are watching me. What I
Yeah.
want them to know is that they can find secureness and comfort, not just in me, but to ask for help.
Yeah.
And that's what my motivation was.
Yeah. Yeah. I when I went through my own loss, my kids were 6 or 7, 7, and I remember the first moment that something happened, and like this sort of grief displacement of like getting mad at the kids because I was so, beyond, and they were I have twins, they were running around and they had the plunger and the toilet bowl brush cleaner, and they were like Star Warsing it with, and I just like lost it and I screamed. And then and they were scared, and then I had a complete meltdown after, and I was crying and I said, like, I'm just so sad and I don't know what to do with it. And my son, who's like a total sensitive, you might call him like an empath or something, like he's just otherworldly, really. Both my kids, but he's exceptionally sensitive. He just came over and he put his hand on my back and he said, I know, Mom, like, I love you. It's okay. And I thought, we've kind of been told that you don't put these things on kids. But what we do is I think anyway, this is all my opinion, of course. Like, I think we rob them of the opportunity to want they all I think all humans naturally want to be supportive. And
Absolutely.
a story I think I told you was that I used to have this group at my yoga studio, and it was, all women, I would say all mothers, or those wanting to be mothers. Some were, going through infertility issues, etc. And we had this moment where I said, okay, listen, everyone, there were 12 of us sitting in a circle, and I said, everyone, tell me, how do you like to receive support and how do you like to give support? And sure enough, everyone was able to say how they like to give support and that they loved it. They love to give support. And no one was able to say how they like to receive support. And I said, so if we have a group of 12 of us wanting to give support and a group of 12 of us not knowing how or wanting to receive support, because most of them had said how uncomfortable it is and that they really don't like to feel like they need anybody, right? And I said, so how do we give and receive support if we're all here wanting to give it and none of us are able or wanting to receive it?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
That
no,
that hits
absolutely.
hard,
It
right?
does. Absolutely. Lauren, let me ask you that then too, because you're in a situation, right, where you've lost your mother figure just recently. You've lost your actual biological mother. You're a new mother yourself,
Yeah.
so you're almost expected now to do this all on your own without any support. And you're going through exactly what, or very close to what, people in this group are going through, which is this deepest grief while you're being a mother and
Yeah.
taking on that identity. Have you found a way? Like, how do you ask for help? Where do you find your boundaries?
Yeah, I think just very similar. It's very difficult to ask for help. I think that's still where I'm at. And I love what you do in specific, just because you really break down, Sarah, the pillars. And that's so important to know about, because for me, it's been exactly 2 months since my aunt who raised me, which was my mother my whole life, had passed. And then just 2 weeks ago, I lost my biological mom as well. So losing them back to back, I thought I should be able to go from grieving to healing. And I've had to learn that's not how it works. And it's okay to have those emotions. They call it, the 7 phases of grief for a reason. I went from finally feeling somewhat almost, I want to put in quotes, human again after my aunt. And then obviously this 2 weeks ago with my mom. And I've gone through literally feeling like I cannot breathe. And it doesn't matter what anyone does, I still can't breathe. And then just complete anger, and so angry at the world and so angry at everyone. I don't want anyone to help me. I don't want anyone's help. And to just this feeling of today, I'm numb. I'm just going with the flow. And I've had to realize on days like today, on days like yesterday, where I feel like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, I'm fine. Like, they're both at peace. I'm going to be fine. Those are the days that I actually need to ask for help the most. And those are the days where I'm
Interesting.
leading up to what the next emotion is going to be. So being a new mom, especially with a newborn, I have actually taken the time to say, even if I don't want this, he's going to want this. Even if I don't think I have to heal, I need to heal for him. And there's moments where I look at my son and I do. I feel like I'm going to burst into tears. And then I take a step back and I say, he can't see me cry. A 5-month old can see me cry. He's not going to remember it. But I have this guard up right now where even with my husband, I've been with him for 8 years. And I feel like, well, I have to smile. I
Hmm.
have to say I'm okay. I have to move
For their
forward.
yeah,
Life
for
goes
their
on.
comfort, for them,
So
yep,
exactly, to tile that back into what you're both saying, I have the biggest fear to be comforted right now. Everyone's, how are you doing? I'm fine. Like, how are you?
Yes.
What can I do
yeah,
for
Yeah.
you? My
Yeah.
best friend right now, she texted me this morning. I know yesterday was a rough day for you. How can I help you? I'm like, oh, I'm okay. How's your trip? Like, how's it
yep,
going for you?
You're
yep,
deflecting. Yeah, it's okay. Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah,
And that's the thing too. I mean, there's nothing to say that you. I mean, there are stages in a sense. But I mean, first of all, I want to say too. That I might backtrack a little bit. The idea of there's like 5 steps of grief or 7 stages of grief or 2 or 12 or whatever, it's bullshit. Um, that really, those
see?
were
But
they were
I haven't seek support, so I will never know that.
yeah, right. They're like, okay, well, let me like so right.
No.
They're there and they're real, but they're made for people who are in imminent mortality. Like they're dealing with the fact they're going to die. It's coming to grips, but they're going to be losing their life. They're going to be losing.
Yeah.
They're walking off of this earth, right? You can't define grief that way. A mourner has to live with their grief. They have to live with all these things. So there's not stages per se. But there is different states. There are different mindsets you will have to go through. Everybody will have them completely different. Like they'll hit them at different points at different times. Everybody's
Yeah.
grief journey is completely different than everybody else's. And to try to say you're going to fix it, or if you do this and this and this and this is exactly how you're going to do. The pillars are important. How I break it down are important,
I love
but
it.
they're really these are the overall things you're going to feel. But
Mhm.
these are the things you're going to get, and it's going to go bounce all over the place. And
Yeah.
knowing someone, I mean, and trusting that too. I mean, trusting yourself to know that you can get through this.
Yeah.
But you need to be able to know that you can't do this on your own. This is not something that is made to do something on your own. And unless you've gone through it, you're
Yeah.
not going to get it. Right.
And
And there
Sarah,
is
I think
that deep understanding that's missing.
yeah, and I think that's this beautiful thing about your community It really is you're bringing together a safe place for individuals to allow themselves to feel. Because I know for me personally, and everyone obviously here has experienced, grief in some form or another. But for me, when someone who has never experienced grief, it's like, oh my gosh, I know exactly how you feel, or I can't imagine how you feel. Those phrases don't comfort me.
Absolutely.
So being in a community such as this, where we can say, I have been there, I
Yeah.
feel you, I hear you, I see you. This is what
Yes.
worked for me, but I want you to find your path where it works for you. Just know that you have the support. Know I've been there before. Know these emotions are normal. Know you're not
Yes.
crazy, because that's how I feel some days. So,
And that's
and the one of the biggest things that everyone says is, they're at peace. Like, but I'm not.
yes.
Yeah.
So being able to have that community, I think, is just so
Yeah.
powerful to be able to experience this healing journey.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely it. Their journey is ended, and
Mhm.
like everything happens for a reason. That's great, except for death, right? I mean, there is no reason for it, and then I love how we're bringing when you're talking about things about being there for each other and how why this community is so important and like
Yeah.
support like this. And this brings us back to what we were originally going to be talking about, which is companioning.
Mhm.
Which is honestly something I never even knew about before. But the way that is described is exactly how I work with you or how
Yeah.
this community will work together. Is nobody is judging, nobody is saying this is what you have to do or this is not what you have to do.
Mhm.
It's finding your journey and having somebody walk beside you to give you that hands up to say, no, 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 this is normal. This is fine. You're not going crazy. You know,
Yeah.
that is so important.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and in terms of the I wanted to just go back to the stages, right? Like I think that all of those things exist, but what I found is that they're non-linear, right? I think you
Yes.
Mhm.
shared that post where I was talking about like you kind of go in and out, and what I years and years ago what I found was that I think in metaphors, and it's like you're walking along on a street and you are looking up and you're looking around, all of a sudden you fall into a pothole of grief, right? Like I happen to be at a party a few months after my dad passed away, and I mean I was there when he died in the hospital. It was really shocking. It was very traumatic, and I'm sure a lot of people in this group have experienced this or something like it. And I will say that I was at the party not really thinking about anything at all, and then all of a sudden I was helping with the dishes, and there was a set of plates that someone had brought with food because it was a potluck. And the can you hang on one second? I just need to turn off a notification that keeps going off. Just one second. Sounds. Where
Okay.
is it? Notifications. There we go. Um I was washing a plate, and it was a plate that my dad had shortly after the divorce with my mom, and it brought me instantly back. And so I was in the
Yeah.
kitchen by myself, everyone's out on a patio, and I was washing the dishes crying. And someone came in and said, "Oh, like, are you okay?" And I said, I'm not okay. I think I should go." And they said, like, "Don't go, but don't cry." You know what I mean? Like, don't basically, like, don't be sad, stay, let's have fun. So I stayed. I had some drinks, which for me was a mistake. But of course, I anyway tried to cope and manage in different ways. And I had some drinks with my friends. And then someone started crying about a guy that wouldn't call them back, that they had gone on a date with.
Okay.
And I lost it. I was like, because I had been right before she interrupted me, I had been saying, like, I was, washing the plate, and then I started crying, and I missed, this was, I haven't really processed, it was very soon after, I haven't really processed this. I'm still looking for a grief counselor or therapist. And then this person interrupted me almost as if they were the same thing about this guy she had been on a date with and hadn't called her back. And I just said, I can't listen to this right now. I
Yeah.
can't do this right now. And I got up and I left. And of course, I left in a way that now everyone's like, "Ugh, what's up with her?" And the person was like, "Well, screw her. That was rude and mean and unkind, right?" And yeah, sure. I can own that. I didn't do it in the way that I would have wanted to, but one of the things is that we like dictate how
Hmm.
people should grieve, and saying
Yes.
like, well, you shouldn't be angry, or you shouldn't take it out on other people, or you shouldn't do this, or and that's something that's why I wrote
Mhm.
that post, because a friend of mine who was grieving, someone came onto her post and said like, maybe you shouldn't be on social media right now. How do we dictate how other people go
Yeah.
through their
Yeah.
grieving process, and at what phases and stages? And it's very, very, it's very messy, right?
It's very messy. It's very unique. Um, the idea of comparing grief comes up a lot. Like, oh, I understand what you're going through. My pet budgie died. That's no, that doesn't complain.
Yeah.
No.
Or for my case, and this comes up a lot when this comes up in our group, where a lot of the people who are talking, they'll be talking to their friends and family, and they get back of, oh, I understand what you're like as you're a widow because I
Yeah.
just got divorced. I'm
Mhm.
like, no, no, no.
The
That's
comparison.
it's completely different. It's completely different.
Yeah. And I think also the guilt. The guilt is something that obviously for me it's still very fresh, and there'll be times like yesterday I probably couldn't have had this conversation. I would be on live with the entire community crying my eyes out. Today I feel okay to be able to have this conversation. So I think the guilt is one of the things that a lot of people that I've experienced so far don't talk about. I feel guilty for being happy. I feel
Oh
guilty for
yeah.
being able to be okay to be on this call. I shouldn't be okay. So that guilt, I remember for me, after my aunt, I felt like I wasn't allowed to do anything. And then now when my mom passed, I already had a certification that was 4 days after she had passed away. And I was like, I feel guilty. I should not be able to better myself.
Oh, I see.
I should be having to mourn right now. I should not be able to
Right.
continue my life. So I think the guilt is something that people don't talk about. They talk about the sadness and they talk about the word grief is tears and hurting. But the guilt
Right.
and anger is also very present too. And that's not something that people talk about as
That
much.
is that is very true, and you're right about that too. And that affects the very many different things. It's the guilt for because I'm happy. It's the guilt
Hmm.
because I know it's been like 18 months. How come I'm not better yet? There's the guilt because
Hmm.
how can I be here and they're not?
Hmm.
Why them? Why not me? There's a guilt for I am I am alive. I'm
Yeah.
here and they're not, and I'm doing something in my life, and maybe to kind of backtrack a little bit for myself too. I remember as a kid, I used to think that being a widow was the most romantic thing in the world. You
Hmm.
go and you lose your
Hmm.
husband or your wife or whatever, and you go through a life and you have to mourn them forever. And that if you decide to move on, or because you don't move on, actually, will move forward, right? But because you'll never move on. The idea for me when I was a kid is that if a widow, if you're really, it's so romantic because you're gonna love this person and you're gonna be distressed the whole entire life, and that's fantastic and beautiful. And now going through that, I'm like, that's not beautiful. That's not beautiful. That's being stuck. That's not beautiful. That's not living, and that's not really giving credence to the love that you did have. It's because you're not, if they're going to be with you forever. Like your mom is always going to be with you. Your aunt is
Yeah.
always going to be with you. Just like Grace, your dad's always going to be with you. And the mourning might stop. The all the emotions hitting you all the time, that might stop. But you're always going to be you're always going to be like, that loss will always be there. And so this
Absolutely.
idea that guilt comes in too, the feeling like, well,
Hmm.
why am I not over this yet? Like, why is this
Yeah.
how it's been a month, it's been 6 weeks, it's been 3 years. Why am I not over this yet? Everybody's grief journey is completely different. And
And
you comparing yourself, and that goes back to the comparison thing again,
mhm.
isn't helping anybody. Right. And
Yeah.
there's that guilt too of why I shouldn't be asking for help. I should be able to do this on my own. Like society
Yeah.
says I should be. How guilty am I for doing that?
Yeah. And the guilt just goes in so many different components of your day to day too. I mean, there's one part like we've talked about, it's the guilt of how am allowed, I think is a good word. Why am I allowed to be happier?
Right.
Why am I smiling? Why am I continuing on? Why am I doing fun things? And then you have the other side of the guilt when people, I think it's phrases. Phrases is a really good one within this kind of world of all of the things that people, they're at peace, or, you know, it heals with time, or your days will get better. So I think having the opportunity that days can get better,
Yeah.
but there should still be a space where we can talk about it on where days aren't as better, aren't as
Yeah.
much, there's going to be days. And that's what I've realized, even just working with you and speaking with you, Sarah, like you could have days for the rest of your life. You will have days for the rest of your life. And we
Again,
shouldn't have to feel guilty about that.
absolutely. Absolutely. Because the triggers are going to happen too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
And great story is a perfect example. You could be simply washing your dishes
yeah,
and those emotions can come back full force as if it was last weekend.
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I think companionship really helps in that regard too.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually being with somebody as they're going through that. So, and that's important too, because when it's just you, when you're doing all the things and you're dealing with all these different emotions, and you're dealing with being a solo mom, and you're dealing with everything, like all life stuff, it's hard to see the big picture,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? And it's really hard to judge yourself when you don't. But if you're judging yourself all the time against your own guilt, but
Mhm.
having somebody walk with you and see the bigger picture and say, wait, you remember? Like you might be upset today. Remember how you were like last week?
Mhm.
Last week you were fine. Last week you
Mhm.
were happy and you did this. Yeah, you're going through a bad period now, but that's okay because look back at where you've been, right? And
Yeah.
it's so easy to be caught up in the small details that having somebody who can see that bigger picture, who can have a safe container to say that
Mm-hmm.
and to tell you that it's okay. Look at what you've done, and having someone help define those boundaries and help you recognize those as well to stop that guilt factor, to stop that comparison is so very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, is it okay if I kind of bring up and mention a little bit of the list
Yes,
around,
please.
yeah, the kind of companioning piece? So, companioning. It's kind of I think I don't know if it's that actual word.
My,
This word
my spell checker says it's not.
not. I do like made up words because I mean the English language first of all is so bizarre, right? It's all sort of derived from like there's these Latin root meanings, etc. But just to kind of explain what companioning is, it's really about like togetherness, being in it together. There being really no leader, no teacher. And while Sarah is leading this group and holding space for this group, which is a huge, incredible, phenomenal task, I also want to say that Sarah herself is in it too. Lauren is in it too. I am in it too. We never really leave the grief. We never really leave the grief because everywhere we go, there it is or can be, right? And so companioning, and this is work from Alan Wolfett, PhD, and I've kind of gone through and adapted it a little bit. So I want to just always give credit and reference where it's due. But companioning is about being present, right? First and foremost, about being present to another's pain. It's not about taking the pain away, which is what we're taught culturally, especially in North America. We don't talk about death, right? We talk more about politics, religion, sex, all money, all the things. We really don't talk about death, and it's one of these things where we're not trying to go in and fix it or take it away. So it's not about companioning is not about going it alone. It's about togetherness. And that can feel I remember when I was younger and I was going through some depression issues, and I think I want to say, my dad or someone said to me, like, well, my friend was also going through depression issues and he thought maybe we were bad for each other because he said misery loves company. Like, are you making it worse for each other? And I think what I want to say here is that I don't believe that to be true.
Hmm.
That my favorite conversations about grief are with people who've gone through them. And what I learned from my like yoga teacher trainings and all the years is called conscious listening, which is really what companioning is. It's having 5 minutes or 10 minutes each with kind of a time container potentially, or just saying like, I'm going to listen and hold space, and you don't actually respond. So I have a few friends I've done this with. It's beautiful. Usually, everybody cries, but it's one of those, I'm going to sit here and just listen, sometimes with my eyes closed and we in front of each other, kind of thing. If we can, if we're on Zoom, same thing, just kind of listening, and even resisting the need or the urge to nod. It's just really holding the actual energetic space for someone. And then you say thank you. And then the other person, you take a moment, you take a breath, you might hug, and then the other person commences. So out of, I think you were talking a bit about like this comparison piece or something, right?
Mhm.
Like comparing what, like, because I cannot even though I've been through a loss, I really can't compare it to your loss, and I can't compare it to Lauren's loss. That even though we've been through a loss and there's similar experiences, the experience is never going to be the exact same because we don't know the whole story and the whole life journey and everything else. It's really about honoring each individual. It's not about focusing on the intellect and, like I was saying, this comparing. So it's not really about um I
It's
think
sharing.
sometimes, yeah, like I think sometimes it's almost like comparing like what we know or the education around it from a place of almost like I'll share what I know, but not from a place of having become an expert or perfecting it, you know?
Yeah.
Um it's really, like I said, the conscious listening is really from the heart. It's not really about analyzing. We often have a fix it mentality. I think we have this cultural thing where we say like men tend to be the fixers. I think we all do that because we've all said here how much we love to support other people,
Yeah.
right? And where does that
Yeah.
come from? Does that need to support other people come from a place of wanting to be supported but not knowing how? Are we giving out that which we wish we could like actually receive? Um, Companioning is also about experiencing alongside. It's not about leading or being led. Companioning means discovering the gifts of silence, which is really the hardest one of all of these. It doesn't mean filling up every moment with words, advice, or direction. It's just, I hear you, I see you, I'm with you, I'm here. Companioning the bereaved really is also about being still. It's not about frantic or rushed movement forward of like get over it, get to the other side of it. I'm tired of hearing about it. Why is this still coming up 14, 17, 7, 6, years later? There's no timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Companioning is about respecting disorder and confusion, which is also a really hard thing. It's not about imposing order or logic. It's not about saying, oh, you're in this stage of grief and soon you will be to this stage of grief. Like we try so hard to control
Well, that's
everything.
what I was thinking of it too. Like we're talking like this is what I was trying to go with the whole entire stages of grief too. Like, there's no we try to fix things. We're trying to say things, okay, well, if you do this and this and this, then you'll be fine. Right. And then you'll be fixed and everything be happy. Right. But
Yep.
being realizing that there are chaotic stuff in life, things happen that you have no control over. But it's knowing that you're going to be okay no matter what, because you've gone through the worst things in your life, and you're still here, you're still okay, and you're still pushing forward. And that's okay. That's okay. You can't control everything. I think that's one of the reasons why grief is one of the things that's so hard, not just individually to deal with, but as a concept, because we have no idea when
Yeah.
we're going to die. We have
Yeah.
no idea what's going to happen to
Yeah.
us.
Our
And
our
that's
own
scary.
fear. Yeah. Yeah.
So now that we've gone through that, and there's the idea that like, oh, if we do in this and this and this and this, then you're fine. There, you can't. It's the understanding that you have to lean into that unknown as well, that
Unknown.
chaos,
Unknown.
and
It's going
everything's
into the
okay.
dark. The dark. Yes. Yes. I want to pause there for a second. Um that everything, it is going to be okay. We don't know when or how, and it's not right now in this moment, and that's also okay. It's a lot of like,
Yes.
it's not okay, and then that's okay. When I always tell this like really brief story, and then I promise I'll shut up. But it's when I was a kid, there was this place. I'm from Prince Edward Island, right? And Sarah's in Ontario, and I'm here in British Columbia. And is that okay to say we're Canadian? We're
A.
Canadian. A oot and a boot. So there was this place called Rainbow Valley. I don't know if you'd ever heard of it. And it was this like janky but magical place. And everything was made out of this like plaster. And there was a witch's cave. And it was this from the outside, it was very, very small. And when I was a kid, I couldn't go through it. We would go there for school trips and everybody like, oh my God, are we going to go through the witch's cave? And I'd be like, yeah. And then we'd get there and I'd be like, I got to pee. I'll be back. And then I wouldn't come back. When I was 21, 22, I went home and they were closing down Rainbow Valley. And now like the parts of it are in other areas of the island. Like it didn't really go anywhere, but Rainbow Valley itself doesn't exist. And I believe that the land that it's on is magical, but that's a documentary and a story for another day. So I go with my mother and I say to my mother, you and I are going through the witch's cave and I'm going to go through the whole thing and I'm not going to be scared. And I look at it and I'm standing there and I'm like, I guess it's smaller because I'm an adult. Like I'm talking, it's like it goes like this. Like it's this like horseshoe. You got a door to go in and a door to come out. But you get inside of it and you can't see anything. The moment you get in, you can't see the light of the entrance and you can't see the however they made it. But you also get inside and it seems a lot longer and a lot bigger. And I liken this as a metaphor to grief. Like from the outside, it looks like, well, you know, you're going to go in and you're going to come out. So I get in and I'm terrified. I'm 22 and I'm touching the walls and I'm like trying to figure out where I am. And there's a couple things in there, like a lit up witch that, right? And then you walk a little bit further and there's a skeleton. And then I'm thinking to myself, I'm about to make it through. And I didn't scream. And I almost get to the outside, right? And some kid is hiding in a nook right outside, right before the door and jumps out and scares me. And I like might have peed myself. I screamed so loud. And I come out and my mom's like, what happened? And I'm like, because she was ahead of me. And he didn't scare her. It was, I guess, waiting for me. And I said, I didn't do it. Mission incomplete. I didn't go through it. And I think that's the thing is like we have these grand plans that we're going to go through. We watch other people go through grief, or we watch other people go through birth, or we watch other people lose jobs and get jobs and go through all these things in life. And we look at them and we think, I'm not going to do it like that. We judge, we plan, we compare. Best laid plans, whatever the saying is, can go to hell in a handbasket. So I plan to go through this cave of death, this cave of grief, and with honor and courage and bravery, and it didn't happen. Even as a 22-year-old, and that's okay.
That's okay. That's okay because you can do that again, right? I mean, that's you're always going to be learning from yourselves too. And that's the other thing too. There is no right or wrong way to grieve. There is no judgment. There is nobody saying you're doing this wrong, you know, and anybody who says that to somebody probably has never grieved before. You know, they're saying from an outside perspective.
Yeah.
And
Or
that's
they've grieved, but they really avoided their feelings, or they've grieved, and like you said, they're the budgie bird or whatever. And like, listen, I know it's sad to lose a bird. Birds are like birds. Actually, I went to a bird sanctuary once, and like, no one should ever. Can you answer this for me? No one should ever. No one. I can't remember what I was saying.
No one should ever be alone for this either, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the other thing too, that there's this feeling that being on a grief journey is something that's only going to be only you should go through. You know, that you have to do this alone, that you got to figure it out on your own. And everybody's case is going to be different. Everybody's grief is different. Everybody's journey is going to be different, and I'm not going to tell you what your grief journey is going to be. But it doesn't mean that people can't be beside you, supporting you.
Yes.
You know, going through that dark tunnel, not knowing now how long it is, not knowing if there's a light at the other side, if you're ever going to get out, but just having somebody else's presence there to say, no, it's okay.
Well, even having my mom go through the witch's cave, right? It's like she came in there with me and was like, and then I got out and she said, did you do it? No, I didn't do it. And she said, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I guess I'm okay. I'm mad because it didn't go the way that I wanted it to go. But what I want to kind of transition to with our kind of last few minutes here is basically to say that all of this here, and we wanted everyone to meet the team and to meet Lauren and I, because what we really want to do is give everyone an opportunity to have a companioning session. So Sarah does have, obviously, available, like, the group is here. The group is amazing. But if you're looking for, I think, more personalized or more in-depth support, then the first thing we really want to do is have some conversations. These are what I call conversations for curiosity. They're almost like a bit of a research call of like, how is it going? Where are you at? What stage maybe do you think you're in or in and out of? How long has it been? What are the things that are still a struggle? And like, where have you
Yes.
not received the support? And what
What
kind
didn't
of
work?
support would you really like? Because what Sarah is really interested in doing is making this experience unlike any other, in that you actually get to be helped in knowing, in
Yeah.
making requests for support. And that's what we're
Knowing what
here
to
for,
ask for. Yeah.
is to receive your I don't know. And Lauren and I both have a ton of experience when it comes to coaching, somatic grief processing practices. Lauren is a breathwork facilitator, hypno breathwork. Incredible. I've taken a lot of grief and trauma based somatic trainings, yoga, etc. Have worked a lot within our community, hospice, recovery centers, addiction centers, etc. And so as a team, we have a lot of experience in terms of being able to ask those questions of like, what does it look like if, what would you really like for someone to just listen and shut up and not say anything for 5 darn minutes, like what would be kind of ideally I call it your wish list of grief support, and just in terms of your whole life and with your families and maybe your children or those people in your life who really don't understand. And it's a safe space where we don't know anyone in your family.
Hmm.
We don't know.
Mm.
You don't have to tell us how wonderful your partner was, because maybe they weren't always. That's another part of grieving. Like when I lost my dad, everybody wanted to talk about how wonderful he was and how proud he was of me. I didn't feel that. I was angry when people would say that. When people would say, "Your dad, he would be so proud of me." No, he wouldn't. He wanted me to have a safe job. He wanted me to have a big girl job. He wanted me to be a financial advisor, which I was for a hot minute, like, well, 10 years. But I'm doing something unsafe now. I'm taking risks. I'm being the loud, obnoxious, bold, blunt, brazen, ballsy, whatever that he really feared for me, because it would make my life unsafe. So these are the kinds of things that you can say to us in these
Yeah.
sessions. They're free sessions because what we're doing is we're wanting to just get the information directly, privately, confidentially from you, to know how Sarah can better support you, how we can better support you within the group, within a coaching opportunity. I want to also say, and I'll let Sarah speak to this, we are not here in any way, shape, or form to take advantage of anyone. That is the number one value of Sarah's and of ours, because we've all been through it.
Yeah.
We've all had people do that to us.
Yep.
And we promise that that is not going to happen here with anyone on this team ever.
There's a lot of mutual respect that you guys have, which I think is extremely, extremely important. Because when you're vulnerable and you've lost everything, especially in with these group where it's not just the loss of your husband, you lost all the secondary losses as well, your life goals. And sometimes when you're feeling so vulnerable, people take advantage of that. And it hurts. And I don't ever, ever want anybody here to ever feel that this is what we're doing. We're not here to prey on you. We're not here to take advantage. We are here because we have heart, because we
Yeah.
support you if and when you need it. This is all about your
Absolutely.
journey, right? Your journey, your way.
Yep. Yep. So what I want to end with is that we're going to be if it's okay, we're going to be asking for your consent, because everything for us is consent based. We may be sending you a hello. We may be seeing like, how are things going for you in the group. We may even send you a bit of a research form, like a survey, like, where are you at in the stages. You are welcome to fill it out anonymously or not. And you are welcome to say that you would be willing to have a chat, 15, 20 minutes. Usually half an hour is a nice kind of little period of time. And then please all know that you have we're always going to be looking out for your best interests. And if it doesn't feel right, if you don't want to hear from us, I know that like Facebook in general has kind of become a swamp thing of like, "Hi, thank you for adding me. Would you like to do this program?" That's not what we're doing here. This is really about connection. It's about relationship. It's about building trust. We want to go slow. So if you're willing and open and wanting and desiring to just be in touch with us, whether it's over message, whether it's over email, whether it's just in the group. I would ask that you maybe let us know or send Sarah a DM, and then Sarah can get your information over to us. Email is totally fine and wonderful. We can send you over the survey to start. And from there, if you do want to have a quick conversation, just a meet and greet, a hello with Lauren and myself, then that offer is there. And we'll be we're looking at like what would be the most supportive thing really here for Sarah to offer within her coaching support and her programs. And so if you have any insights, it doesn't mean that you have to join. It doesn't mean that you have to purchase anything. It will just be really helpful for us to understand what might be missing and what things are we not seeing that you're really looking for in terms of support. So full transparency, we're looking to really gather some information if you're willing to talk. Also, we want to support you. We want you to feel, I think, like a little bit of that what's available, and like I always call it like a little sample platter of the kind of person, the kind of people we are, and the kind of support that you would receive. Did I miss anything there, Sarah? Lauren, do you want to add anything?
No, that sounds amazing.
Yeah,
absolutely amazing.
Yeah, this work is really important to Sarah. It's really important to me, and it's really important to Lauren because we're in it. You know, I'd say we've been through it, but the truth of the matter is that we're in it. And I'm currently in the midst of a scary, diagnosis myself, and even like processing around the grief and having the conversations around like sickness and illness and death with my family has been very interesting. So the other part of this is like just having this awareness of like the one and only thing that is inevitable in this life, unless somehow we get into a zombie apocalypse or figure out how to turn into vampires, we're not permanent fixtures here. We are mortal, but mortal humans.
Yeah, it's funny. Actually, one of the things that we used to say all the jokes with my kids all the time is like, your dad's dead. If he actually were alive right now, he'd be like a walking zombie, and you don't want that in your life. You know? You guys are awesome. Like, honestly, I would not have brought you on if I didn't feel the authenticity that I get from you guys.
Thank you so much, Sarah. This was amazing.
I want you guys to know too, like I would not ever bring anybody into this group who I didn't think would be a good fit, to know that they can support you, knowing that. And again, I would love to individually reach out to every single one of you, but I can't. And I have to trust that Lauren and Grace are going to keep you in those kid gloves, and maybe even not. Maybe if you need some hard, no nonsense, like actionable things,
you get to choose. You get to say, I like it soft or I like it rough. My friend always says that when she gives me feedback on any of my marketing. She's like, how do you want it? Do you want me to be, how are you today? What can you handle? And I think that that's the other thing of like, just checking in, like where my coach always says to me, like, what's the weather of your mood? Like, where are you at today? Are you a tree and there's no wind, or are you a shrub and it's a tornado? Like, where are you at? Where's your nervous system at? And so between the three of us, we have a lot of tools, education, experience, real time. And I'll just say like love and care and kindness. And we wouldn't be here if we didn't. There's no desire for us to have you feeling any discomfort whatsoever. So I think I'll end on that note. We'll be dropping the link for booking in the comments. And if you are rewatching this, please let us know with a hashtag replay, or, just catching this now. And then of course, we are add us to Facebook. Our DMs are open. Just specify that, you want to chat a little bit about what's going on in the Facebook group, in Sarah's Facebook group, which is, we're in here now, Widowed Solo Parenting. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Sarah, for having Lauren and I. We really love you. We appreciate you, and we're here for you and all of your community.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Okay, now I have to figure out how to end the stream, so give me a second.